Welcome to the podcast. It starts with you, with me, Vic O'Farrell. I ask my guests, by understanding their own behaviours and personality style, what impact on their lives, both personally and professionally, has there been? What is it like to live and work with someone of your style? I mean, this is not about labelling people, putting people in boxes, or an excuse for bad behaviour. It's about recognising, understanding and respecting that we're all different. And what impact can you have on others by looking in the mirror? Because it starts with you.
Another episode. I'm excited for this conversation, and today I am joined by Barbara Nixon. But Barbara, would you like to tell the listeners and viewers, because this goes on YouTube as well, who you are, what you do, everything that you empower the world to do as well? Let them
Fantastic.
know.
Hi, Vicky. I'm really pleased to be here. What do I do? I am a success and leadership coach and consultant and speaker, trainer, all the good stuff. And I help people, mainly directors and business owners, to get out of their own way, stop holding themselves back, and to actually lead themselves first. So that it's all about just looking at yourself first, and I know this is where we get to be similar and looking at that ripple effect and how you can actually influence and impact people around you positively.
hmm yes, and that's how we were talking about that before we even booked going on the podcast, didn't we? So if you had to describe your own personality, what would you say that you were in terms of colours or outgoing or
Yeah.
extroverts, however, whatever words you choose?
I haven't done a personality profile for a long time. However, these are just my words. I very much sit on the fence when it comes to um, a personality type, if you like. So I am quite outgoing. I can be the life and soul of the party. I am the comedian and the person who will always stand up in front of people, and I can take control of things quite easily. But so people confuse me as an extrovert, but I'm really not. I'm very much an introvert. So when I've done all of that, I like to hide away. I go on long walks. I get busy with a good book, and on the sofa I can binge watch a good box set for hours. So I really like to feed myself on my own, but I spend my energy on other people. Yeah,
hmm
so that's why I kind of get confused as being an extrovert, because I'm very much the life and soul, but I do nurture myself really, really carefully these days.
Mm. No, and I hear that because I know myself. I am definitely the outgoing extrovert, and
Mhm.
those that have listened to this go, "Yeah, stop banging on about yourself, Vic. It's not all about you." But I can also sometimes need me time. And I think that's probably over the years understanding behaviors. So would you say you've always been like that, or has your work impacted how you behave?
I think I've always been like that, but I've not always been aware that I've been like that. So I think I did things accidentally before. So let me, it's a really good question, actually. And it's nice to just kind of reflect, isn't it, and go back and think, yes, there are moments, certainly in the past, where I have kind of confused myself as an extrovert, thinking, yeah, I can just keep going like, the ever ready bunny. And that led to burnout. It led to feeling shattered all the time. It led to just this depletion that I couldn't quite put my finger on it, because to the outside world and to myself, things were going great, right? So I was always able to be the person for everybody, to show up, to um, just keep doing. But at the same time, I love things like, I've always loved being on my own and going for a really long walk. I've always loved reading. I've always loved I lonely, isolating kind of activities. Even though I do love all of my hobbies involve other people and my work involves other people. So I'm very much a people person. I'm kind of an anomaly, but it's about feeding myself. Now that I've got older, and certainly, it's probably quite a few years before COVID, to be honest, before lockdown, I started recognizing that I was at my best when I allowed myself to go inwards. So I actually cultivated a time and a day and a working week, if you like, a life where I gave myself opportunities to go, actually, I'm hiding away now, and that's okay. So I gave myself permission to do that. And so now I feel as though I'm thriving as a result of that.
Because do you not find that as it's human nature, isn't it, that we don't give ourselves permission to do certain things because we think they'll be frowned upon?
Yeah, yeah. And that we can't say no. So I was very good at saying yes to everything.
Hmm.
Really, really good. I mean, I was brought up by a people pleaser, right? So I know that, and I can see it, and I adopted those behaviors. So I was very much, very, very good at saying yes. So if you asked me to do something, it'd be, yeah, no problem, I'll sort it out. And I'd squeeze and fold myself into these boxes to suit other people and to suit what they needed. And I have a thing called a theory, a belief called universal baseball bat, that sometimes you get the same thing happen over and over and over again, and you kind of just need to listen at some point. And what happened to me over and over again, Vicky, was that um, I found myself completely booked out and having no time to do the things that I wanted to do. And I remember one situation actually pops into my head when I first started my business, and we're talking it's back 2010. Yeah, it's quite a long time ago now. And I'd said yes to lots of things like, just helping people out and volunteering and all sorts of things. And then a potential client came and asked me for a meeting. And remember, I'd just started my business, so that was kind of a priority. And I looked at my diary and I had nowhere to put this person. And I thought, oh, do you know, I'm feeling shattered and I've done nothing for me. Something is terribly wrong. And so it was just one thing that really stuck out for me. But I've had a couple of times like that. And I've really learnt my lesson. I've learnt to say no. Learned to say yes to things that bring me joy. And I have a process where if I don't have to do it, I don't want to do it, and it doesn't bring me joy, then it's not part of my goals. It's a no. It's just a no. And that's okay. That we're allowed to do that. And to say yes to things that really feed me, whether that's feed my energy or nurture myself, um, or whether it's just, feed my soul, if you like.
Mm. And that's where, well, I said we often don't give ourselves permission to do those things. We say yes because we think that's the right thing to say, as opposed to, is this serving me? Is it bringing me joy? Is it serving my customers?
Mm.
So when you talk about you help leaders to lead themselves first,
Yes.
what kind of things do you do?
So I would do that through the mechanics, the vehicles that I do it through are one-to-one coaching and group coaching programs and development days. But the ways that I do that are reminding themselves that success starts with them. So when we're running a business, when we're leading a team, we have impact over everything around us. We have impact over the business, we have impact over our team. And unless we're on form, unless we're actually coming from a place where we where we understand ourselves, whether we're putting ourselves first, where we're being our best selves, the impact that we're going to have is not going to be that great. And there's so often that I've seen people at a very senior position leading big businesses that are running on empty, that haven't put their being out, with their having feeding their relationship or being out with their partners. They've not been on holiday for a long time. The people around them are feeling stressed and frustrated, and they can't understand why. They can't understand why it's all glitching. But when we actually start putting the shining the torch on ourselves and thinking, actually, how are we leading by example? Where are we being the role model? And if we're our best selves, that can only ripple out in a positive way. So one of the first things that I do with my clients is something called a pocket of air. And all of my clients really, really struggle with this, to be honest. And this is where you find something and you get to decide, but it can't involve anybody else, where that feeds you for at least 20 minutes a day, whether you're going to go for a walk or you're going to take, maybe take the dog for a walk or you're going to go for a run or do whatever exercise is your thing. You get to decide. But as I said, it can't involve somebody else. It can't involve, so you can't take your kids or your wife or your husband with you. We're not a multitasking. The only thing that you could take with you is the dog. I do
Okay.
allow that. That's it.
The pets can come, but not humans. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. No humans. And it's got to be just for you. So at the end of the activity, it's got to give you that feeling, that kind of, oh, I feel a little bit better now.
Mm.
And the problem comes with this, the reason it's so difficult is because we're conditioned to keep going. And especially the people that I work with, they've been performing at a high level for such a long time and pushing, that we forget that we need some nurturing too. And there's so many excuses in there. There's so many reasons why you can't do that. I don't have time. I've got loads of meetings. I've got this and that and the other to do. But once they start doing it and they start to cement that habit, I get so many messages, Vicky, you wouldn't even believe it. Like, who knew that a walk could just transform me like it has? And then seeing that knock-on effect. I mean, I remember once somebody's wife phoned me up and said, he saved my marriage.
Oh,
Just
wow.
no, so, right, and I've had messages about I've actually put my kids to bed this evening, and I've never been able to do that before. Or I've been home in time to have dinner with my family, or I've been on holiday, or whatever it might be. And it's just getting ourselves used to having again creating that life that we want to live. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing kind of situation.
And that's just picking up on a word you used there. It was about habits.
Mm.
It's about actually, because 20 minutes a day is not a huge amount, is it? I
No.
mean, before we came on this, and for those that are listening, for January 2025, I wrote off because I wasn't very well at all. And I didn't go to the gym. I probably only went a couple of times, and I'm normally Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 a.m. I'm there, and it's my time. And whilst that is with other humans, I'm just looking at the notes that I read out, it's actually an hour of my day for me, for self-improvement, and I love it. And I really notice if I haven't been, I really feel quite sluggish and quite I can't get going. And okay, yes, 6 a.m. is not everyone's choice of gym time, but I'm a naturally early riser, so I know if I do that before my day starts, it puts me in a completely different frame of mind. How do you get your clients to change their habits to put 20 minutes in? What's your secret, would you say?
I think it's just that they come to me for a reason, right? So usually because we're now having a conversation and we're now working together, they're in that place where they're open to suggestions. And also, once you start doing it, the evidence speaks for itself. I'm a massive fan of creating experiments for yourself. So you remember when you were at school and you didn't, when you were in science, you'd create a bit of an experiment and there was no success and no failure. It was all just results. And I think if we just create a bit of an experiment and let's just see, do it for a week, right? And prove me wrong. Prove me wrong that it doesn't work for you, and that's okay. Just pick your thing, commit to it for a week, and then tell me. And then we start tweaking. So maybe it's not going for a walk that's your thing, or maybe it's not going to the gym at 6 o'clock like you do. I hate that. That I didn't even know. Unless it's a plane to catch, I'm not getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Right? That's not just happening for me. Especially to go like on a treadmill, I'd be like, "What is going on?" I'd be still there in my pajamas. That wouldn't work for me. But it's about picking your thing and then just tweak and tweak and tweak and tweak, and then testing it and see what happens. But usually by that point, the evidence speaks for itself, and they're like, yeah, actually, it does really work. Let's just keep this going because I feel better. And
Yeah.
then they start to see the knock-on effect with their families and their teams. And as a result, they start to take action from a different place. So that's just one block that we tackle, but there's all sorts of other blocks, like mindset blocks that we work on. And when you start taking action from a better place, you're going to get better results. It's
Mm.
just how it is, that's just cause and effect.
What would you say is the most unusual thing then that somebody's put in as a 20-minute habit change?
Oh, crikey. I don't think there's been anything that's been that. It might be unusual for me, so something that I really wouldn't do, like going um, mountain climbing, as in proper, what do you call it? Do you
Rock
scrub
climbing.
climbing? That's what I'm like, scrub,
For
uh,
those who aren't watching, that's you should get over to the YouTube channel because that was quite funny.
definitely. Yeah, so rock climbing, um, it's probably, going on long cycle rides. They tend to all fall into the exercise, like getting out and being in nature, to be honest.
That's the endorphins then, isn't it, that's released?
Absolutely.
And I think we forget that as human beings that actually, like if I just look at myself not having gone to the gym, why am I feeling sluggish? Well, I know full well it's because I haven't been to the gym. I feel so much better. I can get home at 7 o'clock in the morning and I'm raring to go for my day. And okay, that isn't a time that would suit you, but if you've been out for a walk, how much better do you feel?
100%, 100%. So I did a thing in January where um my husband was wanting to start walking. I've claimed dog walking, right? That's my thing in our house. So my husband's going, "Oh, I'll walk Nelly." Our dog's called Nelly every second day. And I was like, "Okay, crack on." And on the days that he did it, I I wasn't a great person. I really felt sluggish. I couldn't get going. I just felt like my brain was fog. And it was just that little tiny thing. And I really, really missed it. So I've taken it back. He can find his own thing. I thought my thing first, you go find your own thing. He's now swimming, which is happy with. But it's just I felt so different as a result of it. And it feels small, but the small things are big things, right? And it's not just that, especially when you're leading a team, you're now giving other people permission to do that. So to actually have their lunch or to go for a walk at lunchtime or to do whatever their thing is and it not be a problem because they're going to come back and be so much better than before. Yeah,
Mm,
it's not just about sitting at your desk and rattling things out. How do we actually get the best out of people? And
mm,
it's often just by going first.
yeah. Um, and the leaders that you work with, are they hybrid working? Are they back in the office? What's
They tend to be mainly in the office. Yeah, we've I think more and more people are going back in the office now, but they tend to enjoy the office environment.
Mhm.
But that said, they work wherever. They work wherever. I don't really think that that's much of an issue for them. It's wherever they need to be.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I find more and more people are going back to the office.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, what I'm trying to think who it was that's now just mandated it, haven't they? That they're 5 days back in the office. Was it Google, someone like that, or
yeah,
Ernst and Young, someone like that?
somebody like
And I
that. Yeah,
think
sort of that.
that's where we were pre this COVID stuff. We always went to the office. Very rare did you work from home,
Yeah.
wasn't it? And that's a lot of my clients that I'm finding that actually the best results come from giving people the autonomy to work where they want, but finding that most people will prefer to be in the office.
Yeah.
It's different if they've got somebody coming to service the boiler. Yes, maybe I can work from home that day. But rather than doing that regimented, no, I go in 3 days a week and I'm always at home. It's actually some days people just, some people will just better off if they start at 10 and
Yeah.
finish at 8.
Mm,
And a couple of coaching clients that I've had, I've said, well, if you're working from home, because their boss is actually overseas, and I said, are they just managing you by time? Because there was one client that just said, no, I have to be signed into the work
right.
portal. Otherwise, they want to know where I am. And I'm like, that's managing by visibility,
Mm,
not by results. How does that make you feel? And what they hadn't realised was over the time, because the manager wasn't their manager when they first joined the company, the manager then became their manager. And that's then how they. I said, so did you set boundaries and parameters when you first started working? No.
mm,
And I think there are still many people out there that manage. one way, as
Yeah.
opposed to actually, how do I need to manage Barbara? Because if I'm going to manage Barbara, I probably need to manage her completely differently. How do I manage Vicky?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you spot on. I liken this to having children, right? I've got four kids, and the three are in the 20s now, so they're not kids anymore.
There'll always be kids.
They'll always be kids. You're right, but they're not little. I don't have to worry about them in the same way. I don't have to worry about them in the same way. So, but you don't parent each child in the same way because they get motivated by different things and inspired by different things. So when your kids have got all different hobbies, you might, talk about different things, but you'd have the same values. So the umbrellas around the parenting them were the same. So you'd have the same standards and you'd have the same values and you might have the same kind of overall rules, but the way that you put those things into practice would be different for each person. And that's always been how I've managed a team. And I think that's where the really, really best leaders actually come into their own by recognizing that everybody's different. You still got the same values, same standards, same rules, same ways of working, but everybody's different and you speak to everybody in a different way. So Vicky might need a lot more attention, you might need one-to-ones all the time, you might need a lot more detail where Barbara might not, she might just need to be, you might need to touch base with her once in a blue moon and she's cracking on. Neither one is right or wrong, it just is.
And that is definitely the spot on there. It's just that it's not about right or wrong. So when I do any of my personality profiling workshops, I say to people, it's this personalities aren't right or wrong, but it's about knowing what motivates you and the impact that you have on others. Like you say, it's that ripple effect of, I know if I'm with lots of introverted people, I just tone myself down. But I never knew that when I was actually in the corporate world. To be fair, it's only knowing it now I'm actually running this business. So if you could tell your younger self, so before you set your business up, if you could go
Yeah.
back and tell a younger Barbara something that would have impacted her.
Um, I would have said, don't be afraid to be your whole self.
Mm.
Don't be afraid of you. And I think that's something that I see time and time and time again, regardless of what you've achieved or what you're doing, what your role is. But there's always an element of maybe holding yourself back or getting in your own way. And I'd have probably given myself that advice. So just don't be afraid of just bringing your whole self to the table. You don't have to be think that you're not good enough or that people are not going to like you. Um, it doesn't really matter, because that's
Where would you say that you held yourself back then, and
uh,
not weren't the whole Barbara?
I think certainly in the early days. I mean, we're going back a long time now. So, because I was in corporate for such a long time, so probably about 15 years in all. So when you're in that environment, you kind of chameleon yourself into that. You become that, those are your habits and the way all your ways of working are to fit in with that environment. So when I started running my own business, it took me a while to shake that off to understand who I was without all of those rules. And I have to be at my desk for 8 o'clock, or I have to do this, and I have to, wear a certain, be suited and booted. That I could actually shed those. But when you're shedding all of those old beliefs, you've got to put something back. And so that takes a while to kind of find out and re-identify who are you without all of that, and who do you want to be, and what does that actually look like. And so I think certainly in the early days I found myself trying to fit into other boxes. So if I was working with a company, I'd very quickly be it looked like I'd worked there forever, and I can
Mm.
still do that to an extent. So if I was working in business, you'd walk past me thinking that I was in that business, right? I'd be
Yeah.
making myself a cup of tea, and I'd just fit in very, very quickly. Um, and it took me a while to think, actually, I don't need to do that. I can just be me, and that's okay.
So, and again, just picking up, I'm scribbling notes here. When you say to fit in, we without realizing, we start molding ourselves, don't we, so that we fit in with the environment that we're in. But what advice would you give somebody that's like straight out of uni, or people who've not been in the corporate world that have taken on this corporate job? So we've got 5 generations, that's the word, that suddenly went out of my head there. 5 generations in the workplace, haven't we? But we've also got the different types of personalities that are those different generations. So, you've got very much like generation culture of how we have always worked. Then you've got the different personality blends of that, and then add the culture, and then add the different generation. And it's like, how can we help the people who are the leaders that maybe are of an older generation to welcome in the younger generation without us trying to mold them to fit in? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, we naturally mold ourselves because of the environment around us, because we feel that's how we have to behave. But how can we encourage people that are coming in to just be themselves?
Oh, I think that's such a good question. And I think it comes back to one deciding, um, let me have a think. How can we encourage people to just be themselves? It depends on the culture of your company. Yeah. So if you've decided that you're actually, this is something that you really, really want and that you're going to welcome it. So that's key. It can't be lip service because it's such a tricky one. If you try and do that and then people become themselves and allow and give themselves permission to be themselves, and then you pull that back, that's tricky. That trust is gone. So you've got to go in full on and actually know that this is something that you want to embrace as a business. But also look at how you're recruiting, look at how you're developing people, look at how you're communicating on a day-to-day basis. And what I will also say is, where's the line? Because there still has to be some
Boundaries.
boundaries. That's the word that went out of my head then. We can tell with each other, can't we? It's like, I don't know what, there was a word I knew, but now I don't. There's got to be some boundaries in place.
Mm.
And I that it's a safe place for somebody to be themselves. So you've got to look at everything in terms of meetings and just the way that you communicate day to day. Is it safe for people to share ideas in maybe a different way, or ask different questions, or challenge upwards, crossways, all the ways, and just work in a slightly different way? Is that all? Are you going to be okay with all of that? And can you make it a safe place for people to do that?
Yeah, definitely, creating a safe space. But I
Yeah.
think it definitely comes from here, doesn't it? It comes from within. How you behave has that ripple effect on how others behave around you. But being able to do it, because the leader and the leaders within business aren't necessarily just the CEO and the board members, are they?
No.
They are the people that come in and allow you, the co-worker, to be yourself, to produce your best work, because you tend to find if you allow people to be like that, they do more for you, don't they?
Yeah. And without judgment.
Mm.
Yeah, that they can do it without judgment, um, that they feel able to express themselves in a way that gets the best out of them.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Well, it is. Like you say, as soon as you feel you're being judged, we start changing, don't we, to fit in? Because it's like, oh, I don't want to be judged. And we do judge too quickly. That's human nature, isn't it? I'm judging you by what you've worn today.
Yeah, it's
And
just
we do it just, we do we not do it by the cars that people drive?
how we do it with.
I've judged I've judged the person in that car because of the badge on the vehicle, and I
Mm,
haven't even seen them. I don't even know whether they're male or female. I've just judged them because of the badge.
yeah, and
And
it makes
how can
really when you actually take it right down to its basic level, it's what it's silly, really, isn't it?
it is absolutely, but how can we? recognize that we're doing it so that we can stop it, because it's instant that we're doing it. But how do we tell ourselves as leaders, as people who will impact other people, oh, I'm being judgy.
Yeah, I think it's self-awareness. I think ultimately that's the number one leadership skill, isn't it? It's just self-awareness. It's and it might take you a little bit of time, certainly for those cemented habits. But I'm a massive believer in that when we recognize something in ourselves, we don't use that as a stick to beat ourselves up with. So using your example, you've seen a badge on a car and you've recognized that you judge yourself, not to then shine that judgment back on you and think, oh, I'm a horrible person. Who am I to be judging that person? Da, 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 da. Let's not do that. That's just it's not going to help anybody. But it's just becoming aware and
Yeah.
conscious of, I've done it. And the way that I teach this, Vicky, is spot the belief, spot the habit, whatever, however you want to call it, just like you're spotting a squirrel in the park, right? So you'd see a squirrel and you go, oh, there's a squirrel. Okay. So when you spot that level of judgment in yourself, you'd go, okay, oh, I've done that thing again. We come from a place of just curiosity, that we're the silent observer. Oh, I've done that thing again. That's interesting. Okay. Wonder why I've done that, right? I don't like it. I don't like that in me. I'm not going to do that again. And then just carry on with life. And
Mm.
then when it happens again, we go, oh, I've done it again. And what happens, because we've brought it back, brought it up to our attention, we kind of shrink the time span from when we've done it to when we notice it, to get to the point where we spot it in the moment. So you might be judging the car badge and going, oh, I'm doing that thing again. No, 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 I don't need to. Or you might laugh at yourself in the moment and go, oh, I've seen that car badge. What am I doing? I don't, that's just ridiculous. And you start laughing at yourself until you catch yourself just before you're doing it.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes easier. And so it's not about deleting it from your memory, or it's about just taking it to pieces bit by bit through a level of awareness.
Yeah.
And
Like bringing it from your subconscious to your mind to your conscious mind. So
yeah,
that, I mean, if we talk about driving, I like to think that I'm a calm driver. I never was, but I used to let other people's driving annoy me, and you let someone out and they don't say thank you.
yeah,
And then the next time I'm like, I'm not letting them out because the last person didn't say thank you. I'd be like, oh, that's
yeah,
not very nice, is it? What if
yeah,
that was you? So I have become that, don't get me wrong, I'm not the perfect driver. I'm really not. But there are times when someone's cut you up, and rather than let it wind me up, I'm like, just gonna just gonna
gonna
let
let
that one go.
yeah, I don't need to. I don't want you to ruin my day.
No.
I've ever been in a situation, um, and I know I have, certainly in the past, not so much nowadays, but certainly in the past, where somebody might have cut you up and you'd end up being hacked off about it all day, or you'd start telling people, you'd be like, you'd go, to a friend and go, you never guess what happened to me on the way here. And you start telling the story over and over and over again. And it got to the point where you think, oh my God, why did that one thing just ruin my day? They're not thinking about you. They've gone on and lived their life.
Yeah.
We don't know the reason why they've cut you up. It
Yeah.
could be anything. And if
No.
you actually knew, you might be really forgiving and go, absolutely go in front of me. Your needs are greater than mine today.
Yeah.
Still talking about it. So
In fact, that's reminded me. There was a day last week actually when my husband came home. He had a really good day. I'd spoken to him just as he'd left site, and he'd had a really good day. And he's a really, really good mood. By the time he'd got home, he was just in a really he was just so wound up by three different vehicles on. We live on a single track lane by three different vehicles, and I just said, "Why are you letting that get to you? You really need to let it go."
yeah,
Um, and I have to be careful how I say it because, if it's that whole like, let it go, it's just like, oh, just stop letting it, you can't just turn around and say to somebody, just don't let that wind you up because that just adds fuel to their fire. It's just like, so you were really, really chilled and calmed and really looking forward to coming home. And now you've got home, you're in a different space. The only person it's impacting, the only person that is having that ripple is you.
yes. We've
Yeah.
all got a choice, haven't we? We've just got a choice on how we actually react to things. And
Yeah.
I think that bit is gold once we realize that we've got a choice. It doesn't have to actually affect us in the way that we're used to it affecting us.
Yeah.
We have a choice. We can change our mind at any point.
Yeah. And it's bringing, like I say, bringing things from your subconscious mind into your conscious mind.
Yeah. Just by thinking of it, looking at it in a different way, we can challenge it. Gets good though, doesn't it?
Oh, it is good. It is good to stop and reflect and then go, oh, just realised actually that wasn't my best behaviour.
Yeah. Doesn't have to be that way.
Amazing. Barbara, I could talk for ages, but I'm going to bring it to a close as we get there. If you could give our listeners, audience, viewers, however you are watching or listening, just one piece of advice, what would that be?
I'm going to go back to what we talked about right at the very beginning of this podcast, is create your pocket of air. Yeah, create that pocket of air. You'll be surprised at just how much of a difference that's going to make.
I love that. And if you want to get hold of Barbara, obviously all her details are in the show notes. So please reach out and get in contact. And whatever has inspired you to do something different, just add a comment and let us know about that one as well. Barbara, it's been amazing to have you as a guest. Thank you for joining me on It Starts With You.
Thank you so much, Vicky. I've really enjoyed it.
Pleasure.
How has this conversation had an impact on you? What have you learnt? What will you do differently? Do leave a review on Apple or Spotify on It Starts With You podcast. And also leave a comment down below. Do also then connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And why not even join the Facebook group It Starts With You and keep the learning ongoing. Thank you for listening.